Hey guys, it's Gwent. Um, this is going to be a more critical video uh on the TMNT set. I wanted to actually originally talk about the cards I found interesting in the set, and I just couldn't um and I'm going to get into why. If you don't want to watch the whole video, the TLDR is just I'm a fan of Magic. I'm a fan of Ninja Turtles. I find this set kind of just disappointing as a fan of both. Um, and I'll kind of get into why, and I'll try to explain why. But there's some things I want to say first before I get into my critiques. One, I understand not every card is going to be breaking new design ground. Not every card is going to be like insanely powerful. And I get that. That's fine. That's fine. We don't always need the next Hedgermolka or the next Umazawa's Jite. Uh, I don't know. Something that's just super powerful and unique and just breaks the mold almost of what a card can and can't do, right? Like that kind of just pushes that envelope. I get it. Not every card can do that. Otherwise, Magic would be a way more insane card game. Um, Moving on to the second thing. This is a smaller set. I recognize that. Um, this is a smaller set, and so not every there's not enough cards to really have space for insanely powerful stuff. I'll admit that. Um, Whereas if you had a set a normal standard set, I guess, uh, you would have a lot more space if you more cards in the design package that would allow for them to kind of push the envelope or push the design space on a lot of these cards. And thirdly, this is a standard set. It's not a Modern Horizon set. This is a standard set. So not every card is going to be insane. Modern I use Modern Horizons as an example because Modern Horizons typically has very powerful cards and very powerful cards that push the formats that they hit. Typically modern, obviously. It's a modern direct to modern set. Or it's supposed to be. Um Supposed to be. Looking at you, fucking bird. The fucking simic bird of doom. Anyway, um but there's even in a smaller set, I think, and even in a weaker standard set, you can do a lot more. And the fourth thing I want to bring up is this is an opportunity for Wizards and TMNT to have crossover with their fans, with each other's fans. Because there's probably not a huge like Venn diagram middle point of people who like Magic and TMNT, right? On average. It's not a huge portion of Magic fans like TMT and a huge portion of TMT fans like Magic, right? There is some shared commonality between them, but it's not entirely the same. It's not one for one. There's it's a ratio. There's a ratio, I'm sure. And so this is a chance for Magic fans to get exposed to the very interesting story elements and like characters in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. It's Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, I'll admit. They're not like doing insane stuff. The entire series started as a like Daredevil X-Men spoof comic, right? Like that is how the series got its origins, but it's also taken on a life of its own in later years, um in which like they have very interesting stories and characters and moments that make you go, "Wow, that was actually like kind of deep for a story about reptiles just mutated by goo." Being taught story like being taught how to be ninjas from a rat. you know? Um there's like a lot of potential, like there's a lot of stuff in that story um that like I don't feel is being shown off, even as like even within this like smaller set. A really big example is that like there's what's there's very little purple dragon representation. We have like a few cards representing the foot and like Shredder, obviously, but like there's very little representation to the purple dragons, who are like the like street gang people almost. Like there's I think one card that directly references them, either like in name or yeah, Purple Dragon Punks. I found it. Sorry. There's only one card that specifically mentions purple dragons, and it's Purple Dragon's Punk, Purple Dragon Punks, and it's just a mana dork. Why is a street gang? Why are street gangs a mana dork? What? And I get it, it's a common, but like they don't even have haste. They're they're a street gang. Um, right. Like there's these characters and these people within the Ninja Turtles like mythos or like lore or whatever that just like aren't being represented. Yes, we have Baxter Stockman. Yes, we have Bebop and Rocksteady, but we also have like four versions of each turtle at each like rarity almost. I think. Um, we have like that's four cards that could have been one card that three of those cards could have gone to representing another like aspect of the turtles universe, right? Because that's what this is supposed to be doing. It's supposed to be showing off the turtles universe. And like I don't know, maybe Wizards wanted to and someone somewhere said no, 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 you have to make like a billion Michelangelo Leonardo cards. But like that's really lame if they did. To put it nicely. Um because this is a chance for again Magic players who don't really know what happens or what goes on in Ninja Turtles other than they're a bunch of reptiles who fight Shredder, right? Like there's there's very little outside of that being shown off. Um like cards that could have gone to other characters, like in my opinion the black call it cards actually show off a very nice diversity of the Turtles universe. And we have like multiple Shredders. We have Shark Shredder, Shredder Unrelenting, Oroku Saki, who is Shredder, um, and Super Shredder. Right, we have four Shredders, but at the same time, there's also like a decent amount of things within the black color, like the black color, that like show off more of these kind of characters that I wanted, or I was hoping to see get more screen time or more attention. Like another card that like I think should have gotten a card is the Fugitoid. He is in the set. He's just called Fugitive Droid, not Fugitoid, who is like a really big character as far as I'm aware in the comics. He was in the cartoon. Um but like he's not a legendary creature, which like his whole storyline is about how unique he is. He is he has Professor Honeycutt's brain. He knows how to make teleportation technology, right? Um and there's yeah, like there's crossover between Donatello and him. They have a lot of similarities. So like a lot of Donatello's cards are like, okay, so like this could have been a few, like it feels like a lot of Donatello cards could have been a Fugitoid card. Um Donatello Turtle Techie, Donatello Way with Machines, maybe. Um Maybe even like Metalhead, right? Um these cards could have been a Fugitoid. Another example is they kind of like just barely like poke at it, but like the more spiritual aspect of the Turtles universe. We see it in the Kitsune Dragon's Daughter cards, the Kitsune's Technique, um, Renee Temporal Apprentice, and then like the Wind avatars, or yeah, the South Wind, North Wind, East and West Wind, where these are like kind of like spiritual aspects of like that like we kind of see, but like they're more the real cards that like drive home this are like more in the commander cards, which is really disappointing to me because that was like another aspect of Turtles that I really liked, is how it could do sci-fi, it could do this like spiritual kind of Eastern representation that was like really going off during the 2008 time because of like Avatar and such, right? Um Another thing I was really hoping for in this that we did not get is there's an episode in the 2008 cartoon where Donatello comes across a guy named, it's basically Jack Kirby. It's basically like supposed to be Jack Kirby, and he's an artist. He has like a pencil, he can like draw stuff and like it comes to life. It turns out that the crystal is tied to like a different dimension, and like maybe that's not really like the whole crystal stuff isn't really in the comics, right? And like maybe they were like, oh, that's a little too weird, but like it still would have been cool in my opinion. Like there's just so many things, and I'm saying that, and I bet like people who don't know anything about Ninja Turtles would be like, they had an episode dedicated to Jack Kirby. They had stuff with crystals. What? Yeah, no, there's an entire like story arc in the, at least in the 2008 cartoon, where there are people underground who are mutated, turned into monsters because of Shredder. Um, that the turtles end up helping and saving, and like they have like this huge tie to like this whole like ancient civilization, proto-human almost, people and crystals, and like we see none of it, and it's like, okay, cool. At least like in the standard set. I haven't gone through every card that we're getting in the commander set. I'm mostly just focusing on the standard set because I feel like that's like the set that most people are going to focus on, right? If you're making a set for standard, that's what most people are going to purchase and consume and like it get people into the game, right? Um Another thing I want to mention is that like getting people into the game. If I'm a Ninja Turtle fan and I'm like, "Oh man, my favorite franchise now is in Magic," these cards should be doing super cool things and they don't. In my opinion, a really big example of this is Michelangelo Weirdness to 11. It's the rare Michelangelo. He's just a hardened scales on a stick. He is just a hardened scales on a stick. That is so lame. Michelangelo could have been like, because Michelangelo is the like. How is that weird? How is that weird? How is him putting more +1/+1 counters on stuff weird? You know, like the Mythic Mikey, he just helps you cheat out stuff from your hand when he hits. He does combat damage. What? Um, the uncommon Michelangelo, he at least like helps your creatures do damage, I guess. And the common Michelangelo, he puts +1/+1 counters on stuff. And like it just feels like this Michelangelo was forced to fit into like this draft um preconception, right? Because like each in in Tolarian Community College's video, they mention how each there's like 5 different draft archetypes and like it's the ally colors, I think, instead of the enemy villain or enemy colors. So in draft you have like 5 different archetypes that you're like supposed to kind of aim for, right? Sneaky ninjas, which is white black, machines, which is blue red, disappear, which is black green, alliance, which is red white, and mutagen, which is green blue. Guess what? Green blue is mutagen tokens, which mutagen tokens put +1/+1 counters on stuff when you crack them, when you sacrifice them. You target a creature and you put a +1/+1 counter on them. Guess what Mikey does? He has a lot of +1/+1 counter synergies. Cool. A lot of the cards in this set feel like they're just like forced to be here almost, you know? Um the 4 Michelangelos, as an example, just in my opinion don't do anything to like represent the character super weird, like super interestingly. Like he he doesn't do none of them do anything that's like representative of the turtle. In my opinion, like representative of the turtle's character. Um and I think that's the thing that like really sucks or like upsets or like lets me down as a fan for both of these is that in Magic you often have the ability to have a character like more of the character showed off in their card. Um a really big example of this could be Liliana, right? Or any of the flip planeswalkers from I think it's modern. No, I think it's from a standard set. Um, or heck, Avatar. I'm just gonna bring it up now. I think Avatar did a better job of representing these with their characters than the TMNT set is doing. Um, like, yes, you can argue Avatar is a deeper story, I guess, with like characters that go through more of a arc and more of a character growth that they can work with, which then, okay, what, like, you have a point. You have a point. But then why are we teaming up? Why is magic crossing over with such a limiting story, right? Something I want to say is that the TMNT set, and I'm not going to compare it to like a Modern Horizon set or Commander set or anything like that, because I don't think that's fair to this set. But I am going to compare it to a set that came out this year, and I think that's more fair. I'm not going to compare it to a set that came out this past like years ago, because one, the same people probably don't work at at Wizards. Two, different design philosophies could have changed between here and there. But I'm going to compare it to Avatar because this is a set that came out recently. It came out like it was a set before Lorwyn. We went Avatar, Lorwyn, TMNT, and the Avatar set is just represents the characters and the moments and things like that way more and way better. Um, I'm not even going to get into how like they don't feel out of place in Magic, right? Um, but and I was kind of skeptical on Avatar being deep and complex enough for them to make a set out of these cards. I'm going to be fully honest. And some of them, I'll admit, don't exactly fit perfectly, like Master Piondao. It makes sense for him to search for an equipment, but ally or lesson feels kind of forced, I guess. Like all the masters have like kind of this lesson synergy, right? Master Piandao, um, the waterbending master, I can't Paku. Um, I think Boomy even does, even though he's not technically one of the masters. Zhong Zhong, I believe, does as well. Um, I could be wrong. I'm like looking. Oh yeah, here we go. Uh, yeah, exhaust 3. Put +1/+1 counter on Zhong Zhong. And when you next cast a lesson spell this turn, copy it, and you may choose. So like he duplicates your lessons, right? And so these masters, right? These characters who are part of the White Lotus, who are um, masters of their like techniques and their combat styles and whatnot. Um, being tied to the lesson cards made a ton of sense, if you ask me. And the lessons being these really impactful moments in the story where like ruinous waterbending, the horror of seeing Hama rip the water out of these plants, right? And like just the trauma of Zuko being burned by his father and Ozai's cruelty are just being super well represented. But like in the TMNT set, I'll admit there are some cards that are like, okay, this is like pretty representative of this moment that happens. Like there's a card where cards that represent these moments pretty well as well, but like it's few and far between. You have Mind Transfer Protocol where Donatello transfers his mind into a robot, right? And I think depending on the story or like the version you're reading or watching or whatever, he does it to like they do it or he does it literally to save his life. But um and like you have Turtles Forever, which is like where like all of the turtles across the universes kind of team up and work together. But like you don't have like Leo being beaten half to death as an example, and like all the turtles losing their way and not knowing what to do without Leonardo because they've been brothers for so long and they've been together for so long that like they don't know how to cope and handle with this moment, right? You have like these cards representing like the turtles coming across their iconic weapons, which I don't really like. I'm gonna be honest because the whole story is that Splinter gave them their weapons. Splinter gave them these weapons, and so like these uh cards being like, oh, they come across these weapons. Oh god, as a fan of the turtles, it sucks to see like and like the cards are like quintessential katana, bespoke bow, um rafts, jite, I forget what they called it. Um and like Shredder's armor, I guess. Like Shredder's armor didn't come from Splinter, but it's like another one of the equipments that's like supposed to be representative of a character, which Splinter's also represented in black, and so I would have preferred like Splinter's stick over like Shredder's armor. But I guess Shredder's supposed to be the face of black, the black like color pie for this set. Anyway, they're just like there are just moments in the turtle story that I feel like aren't being best represented in this set, and it's really heartbreaking almost as a fan. Um, like yes, you have some very iconic cards, um, and like don't get me wrong, the art for some of these are just stunning. Raphael's technique, in my opinion, is a very stunning piece of art. Um, I really like what's going on in the art for Hard One Jite. I don't like the implication that like I guess Raph had to like kill someone for his weapon. Is that what's going on in this card? Like, you know what I mean? Um, and back to like like representing or like continuing off of like representing the characters. Um, you have multiple Angs in the Avatar set. Spoiler, I guess you have multiple characters just reused for um for the set. You have multiple Zhaos, you have multiple Zuko's, you have multiple Irohs, but they still represent like a very iconic moment very, very well, in my opinion. For example, Zhao the Moonslayer. He turns into a blood moon, which is like in a very iconic card in Magic, right? Um, and this is like this is an example. This is an example of Magic being able to do some really interesting and cool things with their characters. Zhao the Moonslayer is supposed to be a representation of Zhao after he kills Tui, the one of the fishes, one of the moon spirits. There's two spirits, Tui and Law. They're like constantly like rotating around each other. They're supposed to represent like yin and yang, push and pull. And Zhao kills one of them, which is really, really horrific because spirits have like a real impact on the world around um everyone in the Avatar world. I don't know how to like say that properly. Um Zhao turning everything into a mountain, blood like because a blood moon actually happens in the Avatar world when Zhao kills Tui. And Blood Moon is a very iconic card in Magic because it's a card that turns non basics into mountains. They don't gain mountain as an addition, it turns them into mountains, right? It often shuts down decks that run non basics because all of a sudden they can't tap for the mana that they want. Um, and so like Zhao being so like Zhao being a Blood Moon, as long as he has a counter on him, right? Like he's a Blood Moon with like a little bit of an extra step, but like he's still a Blood Moon, right? It's very iconic and representative of both Avatar and the world. I mean, Avatar's world and like Magic, in my opinion. Like this is a really beautiful, good crossover. And then you have Michelangelo Weirdness to 11, and I'm comparing both of these because these are both cards that do things that are very iconic in Magic. Zhao, um, is a blood moon on a stick, basically. That's like a way you could word a description for Zhao. Michelangelo Weirdness to 11 is a hardened scales on a stick. But why is Michelangelo hardened scales on a stick? Is it because like what about Michelangelo allows people to get more powerful from their mutations, right? That's not really like a thing Michelangelo does. Even even when he turns into the last Ronin, even when he turned like spoiler, I guess, for the last Ronin, it's Michelangelo. Um, but even when Michelangelo turns into the last Ronin, he doesn't like draw more power from uh being a mutant, right? Like so why is Michelangelo hardened scales on a stick? And that's like the best. Or another example, this is kind of more unfair because one is a rare and the other is I believe an uncommon. Is no, he is a rare. Leonardo Cutting Edge is a rare. I'm sorry. Leonardo Cutting Edge. Why is he a Johnny's Pride mate? What about Leo makes him an Ajani's Pride mate, right? Or what about him makes sense for that effect? And like to go into another set that came out this year, Aerith. To compare Leo to another card that came out this year, Aerith Gainsborough. She's in Standard. She's a Final Fantasy card. Final Fantasy came out the summer before Avatar. Um, Aerith being a Ajani's Pride mate with Lifelink, and then buffing everything if she dies makes a ton of sense. She is a healer, right? And so when you heal, she gets stronger, and then when she dies, she passes on that strength to another character that, like specifically a legendary character, which would be like like in theory be an iconic Final Fantasy character, someone that like you played as or someone that was in your party, and that makes sense, right? It doesn't really make sense for Leonardo, in my opinion, right? You can argue like Leonardo Sewer Samurai or Leader in Blue make a little bit more sense as cards for Leonardo, but why 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 is Leonardo an Ajani's Pride mate with lifelink? Like Sneak, okay, sure, he's a Ninja Turtle. All of him having Sneak makes sense. It's very iconic for Leo. Leo being a sneaking Ajani's Pride mate, sure, I guess. But why isn't he um like if you want to reuse a card's effect, why isn't he like a Lorn of the Third Path? Or actually just found the card that like probably would have worked way better. Um so like why is Leo a Johnny Primate? Why isn't he like a Yoshimaru Ever Faithful, where it says whenever another legendary permanent enters the battlefield under control, put a +1/+1 counter on Yoshimaru? He is a card like Leo is strengthened by his brothers. Leo derives his strength in his his inner strength and his character from his brothers. He's always trying to keep them together and trying to show them that like together they're strong, that they can like overcome anything because they've been brothers their whole life. There is so like whenever one of another one of the turtles sneaks in or comes into play, him buffing himself, right, would make so much sense. It would make so much sense. Or like even Michelangelo, if you want to like be like, oh, Mikey derives his strength from his brothers as well, or create an enchantment like that. And but or arguably have Leo be a Yoshimaru and then keep Michelangelo as a hardened scales. All of a sudden, you have it to where all the turtles build off of each other in standard, right? Because all of a sudden Leo's buffing himself whenever Mikey comes into play. Mikey's buffing Leo because that's how Mikey works, right? Michelangelo, and then like you have Raph who does it. Like, why isn't this set designed like that, right? And sure, it's kind of a feast or famine type of design for the turtles, but they're brothers, right? In the set, I feel like there's very little tying them together, except for like Splinter. There's one Splinter card that when I read it, I went, oh, if there's going to be like a ninja sneak deck, it's going to probably be using Splinter as like the big payoff, as like the thing to get like more value from the card. And it's Splinter Radical Rat, and it's if an ability of a ninja creature control triggers, that ability triggers an additional time, right? So like he's a panharmonicon, but like he kind of makes sense in my opinion because like he's like yes Leo good, and so like Leo does the thing better. I don't know. I don't entirely hate that one, but you can argue that one's bad. But like he also target ninja can't be blocked this turn. He enables your ninjas to sneak, which is really good. Um, he triggers off of like ETB. Like Splinter doubles your ETBs, combat, and like other effects, mana activate effects. Splinter makes a lot of sense for like Splinter doubling your ninja's effects to me makes more thematic sense for Splinter specifically. But like this is a set centered around the universe of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and like the turtles themselves don't like I read them and like maybe this is just me, but they don't feel like they fit, you know? Like you have each of the turtles in like a monocolor, and then you have the turtles in like a hybrid color. So like you have like Dawn, Mikey and Dawn party planners, they're like the Simic, Mikey and Leo, Chaos and Order, and like it's supposed to be those two brothers working together. That's supposed to be the idea of the card. But like they don't it doesn't fully make sense because Mike as an example, Mikey and Leo Chaos and Order, it's two Selesnian hybrid mana, which okay. So you already have Mikey as a hardened skills effect. Selesnya likes putting +1/+1 counters on things and gaining life and destroying like artifacts, enchantments. Well, that's more of a green thing, but just like Selesnya things. Whenever you put a counter on a creature you control, draw a card. This ability triggers only once each turn. It's a 2/2. Only once? There's 2 turtles on the card. Why not make it a little bit why not make it a little bit good? Why not make it a little bit spicy? Why not twice each turn? There's 2 turtles. And all of a sudden, Mikey being Mikey and Leo, or like a Mikey and version of Leo existing in this Mikey Leo deck, make a lot of sense. You know? It just, a lot of the cards in this set just feel hollow, I think is the best way I can put it. I get it's a smaller set. Again, at the beginning, I believe I said, like, not every card needs to be groundbreaking and amazing and just like totally destroy the mold of what it means to be a Magic the Gathering card. But there's just so many issues I see with this Magic the Gathering set as a fan of Magic the Gathering and as a fan of Ninja Turtles that I just find very disappointing. And it's really hard for me to evaluate and look at this set and praise, talk about like the things I think are going to probably see play in standard, because but like the thing is that the cards that are going to see play in standard are just cards that have existed already and we know are good, right? Michelangelo probably going to see play, or like the Weirdness to 11 probably going to see play. We will probably see a deck running Michelangelo Weirdness to 11, shocking no one, right? If you play Magic the Gathering, Magic the Gathering Arena, there has almost always existed like a life gain mono white aggro. The Leo that is an Ajani's Primate is probably going to see play in that deck because it's an Ajani's Primate that sneaks in and is self-sustaining. And it's just like, okay, yeah, it's good. It's a good effect, but why is it on Leo? And that's my point, is that it's like, what about Leo is him gaining strength, like getting stronger from doing damage? Huh? If Wizards wants to continue making these crossover sets, right? I really wish they would be more like Final Fantasy or Avatar, where they're better representation of what that IP um or the characters from that IP can do, or like who they are. And like arguably, yeah, sure, it's really hard to narrow down a character into a card and like a card's identity. Especially whenever you have a character that has like growth, right? Especially in like a single card, which is where I give like multiple versions of a character's card existing some slack, especially in the same set. Like Aang. Having multiple cards makes sense, and it's very flavorful and thematic, kind of. We literally see him start as Aang's with Savior, and then, or I'm sorry, no, he starts off as like a mono white Aang card, doesn't he? He starts off as Aang the Last Airbender, an uncommon. um, so like he starts off as Aang the Last Airbender. He only knows airbending, right? And then you go into Aang Swift Savior. He knows waterbending, so now he taps. Now he has to tap for blue, right? And then Aang at the Crossroads, he's learned earthbending, so now you have to tap for green. And then Avatar Aang, he's learned firebending. He's fighting Ozai. It's the pinnacle of the story, and now you have to tap for all four of the colors, or all four colors: red, green, white, blue. And he flips into a 5-color card. right? Or like a card that like has all 5 colors, where if you use all 5, you can cast, or like spells you cast using all 5 colors cost 1 of each color pip less to cast. So now you're just tapping for generic mana, and it's a very big, powerful payoff. But he's really hard to flip over, admittedly, because you have to do all 4 of the bendings. Um, but like this makes sense for Aang, right? We literally see him grow as a character across these cards, and representing, and like each one of them is supposed to represent Aang at the end of these seasons, or at the like, like Aang the Last Airbender is supposed to be like the start, and then Aang Swift Savior is him at the end of book 1. Aang at the Crossroads is the end of book 2. Avatar Aang is the end of book 3, where he's like at his pinnacle and he's going into Avatar state to fight Ozai. We don't have that in this turtle set. And like, sure, you can argue that it's Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and it's not as deep and complex, but these characters go through stuff. They go through trials and tribulations just as much as Aang does, just as much as Cloud does. I would say it's not a one for one, but like they still have growth. They still have character development, and we don't see it represented in this set. And yes, again, you can argue this is a smaller set, so like it's harder to do that justice. But like when you have 4 versions of Leo, and you don't take the opportunity to have like Leo, like kid Leo, Leo just starting out, like Leo when they first go to the surface, Leo when he's like a little bit more mature, or like later on he's fighting the Shredder and Shredder beats him and he's like passed out and they have to run to the countryside, April's grandma's house. And then Leo when he's like fully realized, right? You have 4 Leos and not one of them really, like maybe Leo Sewer Samurai represents that, you can argue, but like it doesn't, you have one, and then the other 3 are just Leo on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday at some point in his existence, right? Like it's, and that's ultimately like the biggest letdown, I think, is that these characters did not receive the same amount of love and attention that like say Avatar or Final Fantasy did. And I love those sets. I love actually the Avatar set. I didn't think it was going to be a set I would enjoy, right? And I ended up enjoying it a ton. Not you, Badger Mole Cub. You can leave. I really wish, if Wizards wants to continue doing these kinds of sets where their universes beyond and their existing IPs of stuff that's not even like a tabletop game like Warhammer, if they want to continue doing them, they need to like have more or better representation of who these characters are, and like what they do and go through throughout the story, than what we got in this set, in the TMT set, or the Spider-Man set, in my opinion. In Spider-Man, it's a lot harder, I will admit, because it's Spider-Man and everything is fucking canon unless Marvel goes in and says and retcons it. I get it, but like you still have like moments of Spider-Man that you could have done, like moments for Peter Parker, Miles, so on and so forth. But this one, it's I don't know. I feel like I'm just like repeating the same thing over and over again of how like if Wizards wants to do this, because obviously Universe Beyond makes quite a bit of money, right? Otherwise, we wouldn't still be getting it. Um, but like I would more Avatar, less this, less TMNT, I guess is like my point. Um, and admittedly, again, not everything can be just super deep, super complex, super pushing what a card can do in this game. And I get it. That's fine. But it's very disappointing when a character you love, like Mikey, Leo, Raffordani, from they're the main characters of the set, and they just do a thing, and there's like very little connection, right? It's not like Shao, the Moonslayer. It's just, yeah, it's Mikey. Which version? Oh, the Mikey that is hard and scales on a stick. Cool. Like it it just means less. It just means less, I think. And that sucks. Anyway, if you watch till the end of this, God, I salute you. I don't know. Um this wasn't meant to be as negative as it might have been. I don't know. Um I'm a fan of both of these products, both of these things. These are Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles I grew up with and I still enjoy. In fact, while this set is coming out, I've considered just going back and rewatching the 2008 series because that's the one I love the most. Magic. I love Magic. I have loved Magic for a very long time. I've always wanted to talk about Magic, and I'm doing that. And so I was like, all right, let's talk about my thoughts on this that nobody asked for. Nobody asked for this, except for me. I asked for this because I did it. Um, I'm not trying to say this set shouldn't exist. I'm saying this set should do more. Anyway, that's going to be it. Hugs and kisses. Best wishes, Grandpa. Toodles.